So today's lesson is on opposite numbers, and our learning goal is NS 7.1a. Describe situations in which opposite quantities combine to make 0. Remember, your learning goal should be across the top of your page, underneath your title, and this should have been set up prior to you leaving class today. When you're writing the learning goal in your own words, certain vocabulary that you might want to review is opposite. And this is in a mathematical setting, right? I'm sure you all know what the word opposite means in day-to-day life and day-to-day English, right? And also quantities. So you might want to review those two terms before we move on. So once we're ready to start with our note-taking, you should have the manipulatives pasted into your binder, and we're just going to do a couple of quick notes. It's not going to take us long whatsoever. So when we're viewing a number line, right at the top of the page, I have this word called the origin. And the origin is where we start when we're counting on the number line, and that is the point 0. The origin is always equal to 0, whether you're on a single number line or a double number line. There's something called a coordinate axis that shows two number lines going vertically and horizontally. And the middle point where they meet is the origin, and that is 0. The positive direction on the number line is always going to the right, and the negative direction on the number line is always going to the left. There can be whole numbers on a number line, but also fractional parts on a number line. So in this case, on number line number 1, this point that they're giving me is below 0. It's to the left of 0, so it's in the negative direction. And it is 2 pieces out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces between 0 and -1. That tells me that where my point is valued at -2/5. -2/5. If I was talking about the opposite number value of -2/5, I would need to find a value that when I add those two numbers together, or when I combine them, it brings me back to my origin. It brings me back to 0. So if I'm -2/5 from 0, I can add positive 2/5 in order to get back to that 0 point. Therefore, we know that 2/5 is the opposite of -2/5. We're going to continue with just a few examples of this. So on number line number 2, the point given to me is 1 whole, 2 wholes, and 1/5 away from 0. So 2 and 1/5 distance. In order to go backwards to 0, I need to go -1/5, -1, -2. So I need to go -2 and 1/5. As you can see, opposite numbers are written the same. They have the same kind of value. So obviously 2 and 1/5, -2 and 1/5. Just one is the positive value and one is the negative value. Number line number 3 shows us a positive 3/5, the opposite of which is -3/5. And lastly, number line number 4 shows us a -4/5, the opposite of which is a positive 4/5. Hopefully these examples have helped and are clear to you at this point. Remember that in order to have a complete notebook when you arrive back to class, you need to fill out the What I Learned section and your proof and your reflection. Today for the proof, I want you to tell me what is the opposite of 2/3 of negative 3/9 of 0 and of 4 1/4. So what is the opposite of those 4 different numbers?